Hey guys, how you doing? I haven't really done a whole lot of beer brewing videos yet. Only one. That was a pumpkin ale last fall, and I've brewed since, but also moved as well. Anyways, I'm gonna do an Irish Red today, and it's gonna be awesome. If you're taking notes, it's gonna have 10.5 pounds of Irish pale malt, half a pound of Chilean light crystal malt, quarter pound of brown malt, and a quarter pound of amber. And also for the hop bill, it's going to be 2 ounces of Fuggle total. And we're going to put 1.75 ounces of Fuggle in at the 5-minute mark into the boil. And then we're going to put in the rest at the 20 minutes left mark. So anyways, let's get started. I'm going to use 1.5 quarts of water per pound of grain. We're looking at an 11.5 pound grain bill. So it's going to be about 4.3 quarts of water, or gallons of water total. So we're going to go ahead and heat up the strike water, and then we'll get to mashing in the grain. Okay, I've got 4.3 gallons of water in this pot, and so we're going to go ahead and get this heated up to 168 degrees. That will help me get a strike temp of hopefully around 155, 154, so I can extract the, or convert the starches to sugars. That'll make you jump a little bit. Once this gets up to 168 degrees, we will go ahead and mash in the grains. Okay guys, my strike temp is up to where it should be. I'm going to add it to the mash tun, then I'm going to mix in the grains. It's really hot water, so be very careful when you're doing this. I also add in a pH adjuster. It's 1 tablespoon to 5 gallons, so I just do 2 half tablespoon scoops here. It's supposed to help with the pH of the water and bring it down to 5.2, so I don't have test strips, but I add it anyways, why not? And now time to mash in the grains. Put my paddle in there, and here we go. Just dump them in there. I bought this heavy duty paddle. It's easier to bust the grains up with it, so it works really good. Just keep mixing it in like oatmeal. And basically what we're doing here is going to take the starches, convert them to sugars, and then that will be what the yeast feeds on to create alcohol. But the sugars also, along with the grains, it adds to the flavor of the beer. So I'm just going to keep giving this a good old mash in. And it's obviously why they call it mash, because it looks like a big old mashed up batch of grains, really. So you just want to stir this and make sure we get all the dough balls. You don't want any dough balls in there, trust me. You want to get as much sugar out of your grain as possible. So just keep mixing it like so. Let's take a temperature reading here. I'm hoping I'm around 155. If not, I might have to add a little bit of cool water to it just to bring it down. So let's see where we're at. I like it when it slows down like that. That's a good sign. We're going to get right around there. 155.6, 0.7. Might get right about 156. But you know, ain't bad. You know, it's definitely not going to add any tannins to the flavor or anything, which is good. You don't want tannins because tannins kind of add this off flavor to your beer. So we're at 156 pretty much. So let's go ahead and put a cap on this thing, and we will let this sit for 1 hour. And then after an hour, we'll come back and continue on. While you're waiting for an hour for this thing to do its thing, why not have yourself a cold beer from what you made before? This is the IPA I made a few weeks back, and tell you what, it came out quite good, and nice head on it. I keep these in here. My kegerator's in the garage, so I just kind of keep these little plugs in there to keep bugs and stuff out of there. But look at that. That's an IPA I brewed about 5 years ago. No, I brewed it like 4 or 5 weeks ago, and oh man, that's just so refreshing. Sweating here. Houston. I don't actually live in Houston, but yeah, here in Spring, Texas, we've been getting a lot of rain. It's been flooding, and not necessarily by my house, but in the areas. And it feels like Seattle right now, but we have the hot mugginess instead of the nice, cool mountain muggy atmosphere that they get. But anyways, I'm hoping this rain subsides because I'm really tired of this really hot, humid crap, and hoping we get back to regular Houston weather. But anyways, just wanted to share this with you. Good old homebrew, clear as can be. It's one thing I love about kegging is your beer, you let it sit in the keg long enough and it just clears right up. That's commercial quality right there. Okay, while the mash is still resting here, I've still got about half an hour on it. I do need to heat up some water to put in my hot liquor tank, because what I'm going to do is the hot water that's in here, I'm going to use to rinse the grain bed in here so I can collect as much sugar out of my grains as possible. So I'm going to get the water heated up, and then by that time, hopefully, it'll be time to start the Vorlauf process. And Vorlauf, we'll go into that here briefly when the moment comes for me to do that. Okay, now it's time to do the Vorlauf stage. This is where I'm going to run the wort out of the mash tun until it's running clear, and then once it's running clear, then I'll start collecting it in my pot. And then once I get up about 6.5, 7 gallons, we'll go ahead and start boiling this. So here we go. First I got to take the lid off. And go ahead and start. You want to open this up real slow because you want the grain bed to kind of settle. So we'll go ahead and start running this. You'll see that nice color looks promising. We just want to collect it in here. You can see there's bits in there, and we don't want those in our boil. We want to reduce that as much as possible to almost nothing. May not be able to completely, but most of it. And as you see, it's flowing. Real nice color to it. And shut the valve off for a second. Then we take a colander, set it on top. We're going to pour this back in slowly. The reason why we use a colander is because we don't really want to disturb the grain bed too much. We just want to pour this back in and let it rain over the grains. And we just keep doing this until we get a clear collection in our cup here. So I'll go for round 2. And this can take up to 40 minutes to an hour to do this. You just want to make sure you get this as clear as possible before you start collecting for boil. It's already, it's already running pretty clear. You can see not a whole lot of bits coming out of there. My bed might have settled already, believe it or not. But I'm going to run this at least 2 more times before I start collecting it in my pot to do our pre-boiled collection. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and start collecting my wort now that it's running clear. And while this is running, I also want to hook up my fly sparge setup. Basically, it's just a little spinny bar that just rains really hot water like a sprinkler over top of the grain bed. And basically, it's washing the grains out as it goes. I can go ahead and hook this up. Flies even like beer, apparently. There's a bunch of them starting to come around. So here we go with the fly sparge. You see it's just going to rain hot water over top of the grain bed. We actually want to keep about an inch of water above this grain bed, so I'm going to slow the flow down here for a minute. What's going into the pot. This is one method of sparging. Some people do what's called a batch sparge, where they just take a lot of hot water after they've drained this grain bed once. They'll dump in an additional 4 gallons of water or so, let it sit for a few minutes, and then they'll drain it again. But this basically will wash the grain bed out as it's draining. So once I collect about a 1/4 inch of water above the grain bed or so, then I'll open up the valve here again and start running it. I just don't want it to settle too much. And we're almost there. Go ahead and open the valve up. Basically, I'll do this until I collect about 6 gallons to 6.5 gallons of wort to boil. And we'll get back to this when it's time to boil the wort. Alright, as you can see, we're getting to what's called the hot break. This stuff right here you have to watch very closely, because if you don't, it will foam over and create a huge mess. So I like to keep a water bottle on hand So whenever it does start to get out of control, you can spray it, and it'll kind of break up that hot break some. And you want to do this so you get a good rolling boil. And once you get a rolling boil, the hot break will go away, and then you can start adding your hops, and then you can just kind of monitor it and let it cook. But anyways, right now we're waiting for the hot break to go away, and once we get a full rolling boil and we're ready to add the hops, we will come back to this. Alright guys, it's been about half an hour now. We'll go ahead and throw in my last hop addition, which is a 1/4 ounce of Fuggles hops. And then here they are. Just go ahead and set them down in there. And we're going to let this go for another 20 minutes, and then we will turn the flame off and start cooling this. In about 5 minutes, I'll throw my wort chiller in and just to sanitize it, and in case there's any bacteria on it, and then we'll start cooling it down with the wort chiller. So there you have it, almost done with this. It smells really good too. Alright, it's time to kill the flame. As the full boil's been going for an hour, just go ahead and turn the fire off, and we'll start running cold water through this wort chiller, and I'll explain what that does in a moment. Turn the flame off. Let's go turn the water on. Okay, so basically what I've done is put my wort chiller in here to sanitize during the last few minutes here, and now I'm running cold water through it to cool this wort down as fast as I can. My tap water only gets down to about 81 degrees, so I'll pitch the yeast anyways at that temp, but the reason why is because I know I'll get my wort down a lot cooler by the time it starts fermenting. So I got a little cooler bag, cool brewing chiller bag, that I can put cold bottles of iced water or whatever in there, and it'll bring this down really quick in there as well. And but I need to get these hop balls out of there, so we'll go ahead and dig those out now. And see how these they keep most of the hop debris in there, which is awesome because it's one less amount of stuff you had to clean out. Just kind of shaking them off here. And just kind of set them aside because I'm going to have to wash them anyways. And get the other one off. This one is a lot lighter because there's only a 1/4 ounce of hops. Set it aside. So now what I'm doing is I'm just going to kind of circulate this some. I've got cold water coming in from my water hose through here, and it's circling around, and it's pulling the heat out of the wort, and it's discharging it in this hot water line coming out. So basically you just do this until you reach your pitching temp. And this can take about 15-20 minutes, and this hose will get away from me if you're not careful. So it's really hot water coming out of there too. So just do it like this. And this is what a wort chiller looks like, just a big copper coil. The copper exchanges heat the best out of most metals, so that's why people use them. And the reason why you want to get your wort down quickly is because you don't want to give bacteria any opportunity, or as little opportunity as possible, to get into your beer. So that's why we do this way. If you're doing an extract brew and you're using a less volume to cool down, you can actually do this in your kitchen sink. Put ice in the sink and set your pot down in there. This pot will not fit because it's a 10-gallon pot, and it's just a huge pot designed for using outside on a turkey fryer, and that's all I'm using is the turkey fryer to do my beer brewing with. I may switch to a banjo burner eventually, but right now this seems to work just fine. So after I get this chilled, we'll come back and go into pitching the yeast and getting the wort in the carboy, etc. But for right now, I just got to cool this down. All right, so now I've gotten the wort to cool down to about 81 degrees. Now I'm going to get it in a sanitized carboy. I've sanitized everything. The spigot, the tubing, the funnel, and the carboy. It's very important that you sanitize all of those things. Anything the beer touches, you need to sanitize. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling up this carboy. My funnel has a little filter screen on it as well to catch any debris. And hopefully there aren't too much debris. There isn't too much debris to catch. Man, it doesn't look like it. But I also like that when it goes through the screen, it kind of aerates it. And you want to have a lot of air in your wort because the yeast thrive off the oxygen in the aeration. The more aeration you have, the healthier your yeast will be. But yeah, I'll do this and let it fill up to the top, and then once it's to the top, we will pitch the yeast. Got a nice color to it. A lot of air in there. You can see all the suds just big time. Lots of air. Okay, I've gotten all the beer in there. It's all on the outside. What I usually like to do is I will pitch my yeast, put my sanitizer on, and I'll kind of hose off the outside of my carboy because at that point nothing's going to get in, but I can at least get all the sticky residue off my carboy. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to pitch the yeast and then put the sanitizer airlock on top. I have a sanitized set of scissors. I have a sanitized packet of yeast. I had this whole packet just sitting in the sanitizer. I'm going to kind of make a little tunnel here and pitch the yeast. These yeast are going to be quite happy. This is a well aerated batch of beer we got here. So that's that. I have my airlock with my sanitizer solution in it, and I'll take this and spray it off, and then we'll go to the closet where I will put it to ferment in my cool brewing cooler bag. Okay, so I'm done brewing, and I've put my fermenter in my cool bag, and I've put in 2 frozen 2-liter bottles in here. This should get my fermenter down to about 65 to 67 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and zip this thing up. Like a big lunch bag, but for your beer. So I'll leave it sit and check on it in day or so and see how we're doing on temperature and change the bottles out at that time as well. But if you have any questions or comments, please just post them below, and I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability. But thank you for watching, and I'll have a follow-up video here soon enough for how this turned out.